Hey guys, I wanted to remind you to check out the latest episode of Talk Tennis, the Tennis Warehouse podcast, for an interview with yours truly. I had so much fun talking with our host, Michelle Heidbrink. We geeked out on all things tennis gear, tennis gifts, podcasting. It's just a very lighthearted and fun conversation, kind of like today's episode. Today, I am so excited to bring on Paul Munkholm and Billy Hanson from the Ball Boys podcast. They are hilarious, fun, and they seriously follow the tour better than most tennis aficionados. These guys follow every tournament, know every player, what they wore, who is their coach. I mean, you name it, they know it. They love tennis, but they don't take themselves too seriously, and I absolutely love that. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We talked about some interesting subjects. We learned about their story, their passion for tennis, how their podcast came to life, and we defend our picks for the 2023 Vida Tennis Awards for Most Iconic Moment of the Year, Coach of the Year, Best and Worst Fashion Moments, Grand Slam or Best Grand Slam of 2023, and then what we missed in 2023 and look forward to in 2024. We want you to be a part of the conversation as well. I am putting a link in the show notes where you can go and vote for your pick. I will post the results on social media at the beginning of the year. All right, get ready to have some tennis fun with some of the best out there only here at Vida Tennis. Enjoy! Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vida Tennis, the podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. Today, we have a very fun episode planned for you with some fellow tennis podcasters, Billy Hanson and Paul Munkholm, which I'm pretty sure I'm probably mispronouncing that.
That was perfect.
Perfect. They are from the Ball Boys podcast. These guys are tennis fanatics and they follow the Pro Tour to a T. This is going to be different from our usual episode format because the year is ending and I want to celebrate another year of tennis fun. I figured it is time to let our hair down, joke around, and look back at what tennis looked like this year on the tour. So I figure why not bring two amazingly fun tennis podcasters to join us. Welcome, Billy and Paul, to Vida Tennis. I'm so excited to talk with you guys today.
Hey, Jennifer, so excited to be here. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was really good. I ate too much and now I feel like I need to hit the gym. How about you?
Same situation. There were like 13 dishes and I wanted to try everything, but I feel like how do you give every dish the love it deserves when there are so many dishes, right? How do you pay attention to 13 things at once? Paul, do you have any?
I like a group setting.
Yeah.
But I think the big question I have for you, Jennifer, is cranberry sauce. What's your take on it?
Love it on everything.
Yes. Thank you. I feel like it's an East Coast thing because I'm a recent LA transplant and everyone I talk to, they're at most indifferent, if not really anti-cranberry sauce out here. I think it makes, otherwise it's just a turkey dinner.
Right. It's not Thanksgiving without it. But it might be like too much sugar for LA people or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I have not been converted to the LA diet yet. They only serve Ozempic here.
Now, I don't like stuffing. That's the one thing I will not do.
I will say there are a variety of stuffings. You don't have to follow that traditional cornbread sausage recipe or whatever. That was a tradition in my family, and we actually veered away from the tradition this year.
That's a San Diego Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Usually my mom and I cook and everything, but my mom had to get some medical procedure done. So we plan on not cooking and we got everything done from Whole Foods and it was the best thing. I mean, you just reheat everything and it was amazing.
That's how to do it sometimes, for sure.
I hope your mom's okay, but at least you got a good Whole Foods out of it.
Yeah, she's good. She's really good. Thank you. But I want to learn about you guys, your tennis background. I've definitely heard your podcast, but I don't really know much about what your tennis background is. Can you guys kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. So yeah, my name is Paul Munkholm. I have been a lifelong tennis player. I grew up playing in the North Shore of Boston about, I guess, 40 years ago now, which is crazy because I'm only 21. But I grew up playing on the public court. So back in the 80s, there used to be like a lot of youth tennis programs. Like youth tennis was a big thing across America. I don't think it really happens anymore. I don't think you don't really see the sort of the public courts with lessons out there as much, I think, as you used to. But I loved the game immediately and I got obsessed with the game. So there's this meme out there. I don't know if you've heard this, but basically the meme is every 13-year-old gay boy finds a diva to worship and then they worship her for the rest of their life. So a lot of people, that was like Madonna or that was Britney Spears. For me, it was Jennifer Capriati. When I was 13, she was just breaking in and she was like this phenom and the entire country was watching her. She was just like this force and this fresh sort of breath of air on the tour and just an amazing game. And then her story, it was like she was my Britney Spears, her trials, her tribulations, her everything. And so I love tennis, not only for the actual sport, but the people and the personalities. And that's a lot of what we talk about on the Ball Boys. It's not just sort of the tennis, but these are people and tennis's role in culture. And so that's a little bit of my background. But I also played competitively through high school. And then I lived in New York. Impossible to play tennis in New York City, to get a court between weather and waiting and costs and everything. Yeah. But now as an Angelino, I play a couple times a week and I really like attacking Billy's second serve.
We will get to that. I will say that, yes, I'm Billy Hanson. Thanks so much for having us, Jennifer. Paul, this will give you some even more insight into what I do in my spare time. At about 2 a.m. the other night, I couldn't fall asleep. So what did I do? YouTubed highlights from the 1991 Capriati-Seles semifinal from the U.S. Open, which that match, it holds up 7-6 in the third.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I got to
it breaks my heart every time. Yeah.
That was sort of the beginning of Capriati's decline. Yeah. Although she did win the Olympics, right, in 92.
In 92. And then she had her amazing comeback in the early 2000s. Let's not forget, she won 3 Grand Slams and was number 1.
Mm-hmm. That was incredible. An incredible story, right? Because my big tennis idol was Mary Pierce. So Mary Pierce, first of all, like Paul, it was love at first stroke. I picked up a racket at age 8 and just fell in love right away. But yeah, then I remember seeing Mary Pierce just blow through the field at the 1994 French Open. And as a kid, I was just like, wow, the way she was crushing everybody, like 0-1, 2-0. She beat Steffi Graf 2-2 in the semis. And something about the way Mary Pierce played with such aggression, but you also knew there was vulnerability there. You could see it on her face. And she had overcome the story of an overbearing father. I'm using the word overbearing euphemistically. And I might have related to that a little bit. Hi, Dad.
Wow.
But I even was so inspired that it was speech class. And I had to give a speech. And so I created this poster. I cut out all these magazine clippings of Mary Pierce. I called it Piercing Power was the title of my speech.
I love it.
I mean, I was so proud. I went in there and it was still to this day probably the best speech of my life. I don't know what that's saying much. I set the bar pretty low. But
did you give it in French?
No.
Un petit, like Mary Pierce, no?
Mary Pierce famously does not speak totally fluent French.
No, she plays for France, but she does not speak French. Yes,
and I don't blame her. She needed some of that federation money. But
I know that.
Yeah.
She didn't speak any French.
A little bit. Un petit something.
She was born, I think, in Montreal and grew up in America. But her mom, I think, was a French citizen, so she had French citizenship. And France was like, if the USTA isn't going to support you, we will absolutely throw money at you. So they went for it. But guess what? I got a C on that speech, a C. And I was like, Mr. Cantiello, why? And he said, you were supposed to speak for 2 minutes. It was 1 minute and 48 seconds. That's an immediate C. Oh. So apparently it wasn't long enough. But I'm going to tell you, it might not have been long enough, but it was girthy. It was impassioned. I was proud of the speech despite the C. Yeah. And I actually met Mary Pierce a couple of years ago at Indian Wells. And I went up to her, I fanboyed out. I was like, Mary, I looked up to you as a kid. I just want you to know that. And I think she quickly connected the dots. She saw the homosexual dots and she backed off a little bit because I think Mary Pierce is now a nun or something equivalent. So
Oh,
It was a bit of an anticlimactic encounter with your idols. They say don't necessarily meet your idols.
yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of happened to me. I've met some tennis pros. Like I met Federer. I briefly like saw Sharapova and like had an interaction. And I loved her growing up, and like they're all amazing. But I gotta say, I'm obsessed with Serena, and I've always loved her, and I always will. But I gotta say, the only one time that I had an interaction with her, I went to get an autograph, and she wasn't very nice. And it was kind of a big bummer. Like it like broke my heart. But
Well, what was the setting? In what
I
context
was-
did you ask for an autograph?
I was at the Western Southern Open in Cincinnati. Actually, I used to work in Cincinnati, and I would get tickets like right behind the baseline. It was like an amazing experience. First actual pro tournament that I went to and watched the best players in the world. So I was going crazy coming from Venezuela. Like I didn't grow up going to tournaments like that. So yeah, I got to see all the big names. Got some autographs. I was like a little kid, not literally. I had already graduated from college, but I was like a little kid with my big tennis ball, like a total tennis nerd. So excited to be there. And yeah, I went to get an autograph from Serena, and she just kind of like gave me like a dirty look. And
Was this after she won a match, or
yeah.
was it? Oh,
Now, did you say anything? Like, were you like,
oh,
No,
next game?
Well, no, it was like everybody was asking for an autograph. And when I went to give her my ball to sign, I was like, oh, please sign my ball. She's kind of like looked at me weird and like shook her head and turned around and left. It was very strange. So it was like, what? Do I smell? Like what?
Yeah, were you wearing something, or like, do you remind her of something?
No idea. But hey, it's okay. I got over it quickly. I still love her. I cried when she retired. Like, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe she was having a rough day. Who knows?
But I mean,
you never know.
I get it. I mean, so Billy and I, we were down at the San Diego Open earlier this year, and we saw one of my idols, Danielle Collins, who is just the Danimal. She is so, I love watching her on TV. She's so brash. She's so like fired up. I love the way she and her boyfriend just bark at each other from the stands. And she was kind of are we allowed to say the B word on this podcast? She was kind of the B word. I mean, a
brat. She was a brat.
She was a brat.
There you go.
She was mocking the crowd. She was kind of like me. Like she was just kind of being like a little baby. That's the B word I meant, a baby.
Yeah.
And it was really like, I'm less of a fan after seeing her behavior that day, Billy.
Well, remember, so she double faulted and the crowd was rooting for her. She was playing, I believe, Krejcikova. And so it was an American crowd. There were four Danielle. She double faulted and the crowd kind of groaned, but in a way that was supportive, like, aw, like they were bummed that Danielle double faulted, and she turned to the crowd and she was like, aw. Like she was very...
Yeah, she was like antagonizing us.
Not amused.
But I feel like she's always like that. She's very feisty, and I don't think she's very likable, but being a woman, like I totally get it. And I've been that woman, and I've been on the other side on the receiving end. So
honey, we've all been that woman. I've been that woman.
We've all had our moments.
Yeah.
So it's okay. I get it. But I do wish that she maybe like looked at herself a little bit.
Arguably, though, it's some of those same qualities, like the flip side of the coin, that have made her such a great player, right? So that determination, that stubbornness, that belief, that confidence, right? So it's hard necessarily to divorce sometimes the positive elements of your personality from some of the more abrasive ones.
I don't mind an abrasive player. The only time that I have a problem with it is if like Zverev beating up on the umpire chair or like something crazy like that, or Kyrgios like drives me nuts. Like I think he's such a big baby. But other than that,
thought you were going to say beating up something else.
No, you remember he like attacked the umpire chair, like that kind of stuff. Like I can't stand, or like Kyrgios like spitting towards his boss. Like he was crazy. And I get it, like he's cool, he's different, but he was like just disrespectful, and I don't like that. I mean, show your personality. I know we all have our moments, but when it's like repeatedly and it's like, like that aggressive, to me, it's like, you can do better than that. You're a professional.
Well, we'll probably get into it later, but Paul and I feel like there's a bit of an epidemic right now of rage on the men's tour.
The guys have gone wild, and we were talking about it on our last show. If the WTA players were acting the way the guys were acting, they would be called every word under the sun of like, oh my God,
yeah.
It's such a double standard.
Baby,
Brat, baby, ballerina, all the B words. And the guys do it, and it's like, well, all right, and it is noticeable. And we have a few theories as to why it's happening, and some of them lead back to our good friend Novak Djokovic.
For sure, we're held to a different standard as women, but we'll get into all that fun stuff. I wanted to learn a little bit more about you guys and your podcast and what you guys are doing. So what made you decide to start a podcast, and especially a podcast about tennis?
So I'll go first, just with a little background. And so in case anyone hasn't guessed yet, Billy and I are both homosexuals. And,
sorry, I'm
did I just out you?
Oh
no, he's unsure. He's still.
I'm just going to process that for a second. Okay, I'm fine with it.
He's been experimenting for 35 years, and still the jury's out. So we created this podcast called The Ball Boys. It was maybe a year and a half ago. So in LA, and maybe just the whole world, there was that weird flu going around that was not COVID, but it was something like COVID. And I was sick as a dog for like a week. And I was watching TV, and there was some show about podcasts on. And I was just sort of thinking like, I'm a opinionated homosexual. What would I talk about? And I was like, well, tennis, because I'm obsessed with it. And so Billy and I started talking about it and kind of grew into this idea of the Ball Boys where, okay, so you don't have to be gay to like our podcast. You don't have to like boys to like our podcast, but you do have to sort of have a little fun, kind of talk about tennis in a different way. And when it does come to gay guys, it is so a little data. You ask the average gay guy, do you like sports? They're like, sure, whatever. Maybe not really. Maybe it's triggering, whatever. You ask them, but do you like tennis? They're like, oh my God, I love Serena. Oh my God, I love Rafa. And they get really into it. And there is such a big population of people who are both gay and tennis fans. Now, if you like tennis, it doesn't mean you're gay, but it doesn't mean you're not gay. And so we were just thinking,
okay. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, sorry.
It's definitely cause for further investigation, for sure. I mean, it definitely prompts further examination. Ball Boys was Paul's brainchild, and I am so happy that he invited me to join him on this journey because it's been so much fun. And I have been obsessed with tennis since the age of 8. And I actually was a tennis pro here in West Hollywood. I was the head pro at West Hollywood Park, and I also taught at Plummer Park. That was super fun, but a combination of COVID and injury led me away from teaching consistently. So this podcast was a way for me to put all of my supposedly useless tennis knowledge to use. And as Paul said, I wanted to speak truth to tennis's innate queerness. And also it's just fun because like some other people in Los Angeles, I'm a screenwriter, and there's so much time where you're sending scripts out and they're getting read, but they're not getting made, right? And it's fun to actually just make something real and have control over making something real versus that whole rigmarole, Hollywood rigmarole. So that's been a real fun aspect of the podcast for me.
And listen to Billy's voice. I mean, that voice was made for podcasting.
Absolutely.
He's got a face for radio, but a voice for podcasting. And it's just like, I don't know if this is his natural voice, but
Paul,
jury's out.
Do you think Mr. Cantiello would give me an A now on my speech if I just hit that 2-minute mark?
It's been more than 2 minutes. So
yeah.
And with that voice, I mean, and I think the name is funny because when I first saw it, I thought it was about being a ball boy, like a ball boy at a tournament. And then I hit play and I was like, oh, wait, what is this? This is very different.
It's the playfulness of it. It's like, hey, we're the ball boys. Because, I mean, we do actually talk about the ball people a lot. I'm not sure if you've seen, but over in Madrid at their Masters 1000 event, they have models as ball kids, both women and men. And the women are dressed, I mean, they're in like Hooters outfits. It's Gucci shorts and bras running and catching balls. And then the male models are in baggy shorts and t-shirts. And we're starting a petition to get the male models also in hoochie shorts and little cutoffs. Because, I mean, come on, you got to be fair.
Wait, which tournament is this?
This is the Madrid Open.
Really?
I feel bad because like the week later, I think they go to like either Hamburg or Barcelona. And it's like, oh, these ball kids are hideous because they just had all these models in Madrid. So it's also fun to like look at like how tournaments are run and all the different things going on. And so the ball boys just kind of fits, and it's kind of a fun, light-hearted. I mean, we are not the place to go to get every score breaking news on tennis. We are the place to go to have a little fun and sort of talk about the culture, talk about the tennis, our passions, but in a fun way.
I definitely get that. And it was funny when we were like trying to figure out how we were going to talk and everything, because it's a very adult show. So I will give everyone kind of a heads up on that. It's a very adult show. It's very cheeky. It's very different from Vida Tennis.
Yeah.
But hey, I was like, they're fun. I want to talk to them. Why not? I'm so glad that we're doing this because it's completely different for me, at least. And for you guys.
Well, I think you have it in you. I think you might be a ball boy. I think it's kind of like Sex in the City. That's just like, let's just talk about like the adult stuff.
Funny enough, one of my best friends is a ball boy in both ways.
Oh,
actual ball boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he works at the Miami Open.
Well, shout out to Jennifer's friend, whoever you are.
Yeah, Chucho, I love you.
What's his name?
Well, his name is Jesus, and he's my friend from Venezuela, but I always called him Chucho, and he's one of those friends from childhood. He was actually my sister's friend growing up, and then I stole him.
Ooh, drama.
Yeah.
We have a lot of like fun little segments. Like we do a segment called Lobsbians where we talk about what made us gayer that week on the tour. We have a Quatch where we kind of watch queer storylines on the tour. We look into our crystal balls often to make predictions which come true, what, Paul, 30, 40% of the time, 20?
I would say it's 50-50. All of mine are wrong and all of Billy's are right, which is very surprising.
What was most interesting is actually Paul was able to look at Marketa Vondrousova's tattoos prior to the Wimbledon final. And he saw that actually the tattoos, he decoded Marketa's strategy for beating Iga. And so
it was all right there.
And only the ball boys had that scoop. Only the ball boys had it. And so that's why you come to us. Or if you need an update on Alejandro Davidovich Fokina's hair or Holger Rune's mom's cigarette smoking or her scarves, we will provide you with those updates.
Did you play MASH growing up?
MASH?
Yeah, MASH. So that was the game that we played probably in 5th, 6th grade, where you would find out what your career was going to be, what house you're going to live in, who you're going to marry, and something else. And so MASH stands for mansion, apartment, shed, or house. And it's just a silly game that kids play. And we were like, okay, is there a Smash version of this that we can do on the Ball Boys? And so in the last episode, we used that same game, MASH, to figure out how to take down Novak Djokovic in 2024. And so you play the game, and it ended up being basically he was going to be stuck in the Australian deportation office with the lineswoman that he accidentally hit in the throat at the US Open. And Margaret Court was going to feed him Caltine bars until he got too fat to get back on the plane to leave Australia. And that's how we were going to take him down in 2024.
Who would be like your dream guest on the podcast?
I think we have to shoot for the stars. I'd go like Venus Williams. I mean, she's got a great sense of humor. She loves to laugh. What a trailblazer. That would be.
And we can ask her why Serena was not that nice to Jen.
I'm sure she forgot about me.
I want to know.
Oh, no. They talk about that moment among the Williams family all the time.
There's beef there. There's beef.
Yeah. There's beef. Oh, gosh. That's the last thing I want is beef with Serena, with the queen. No, thanks.
Yeah. Well, we have had Margaret Court call in. So every now and then she calls in and she's like, "Good day. I'm Margaret Court."
Novak has tied her for the record of Grand Slams, 24.
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to surpass her, Jennifer?
Yes, 100%. I think he will.
Oh, he's gonna end up with like 30 Grand Slams.
Yeah, I think he's gonna break all the records, and he's still not gonna be as loved as Roger and Rafa for some reason.
Exactly. Oh, there's many reasons. So Margaret Court, she's pretty vocally anti-LGBTQ, and that's her choice. But it's just an interesting thing to come out on in 2023, particularly given that the women's tour is where most of the out players are. So it's just sort of, are you really going to die on that hill, Margaret? I mean,
I think she's climbing the hill.
She's close to death, is what you're saying.
She's getting to the summit of that hill.
But we're all being
there is Margaret Court Arena at the Australian Open, and a lot of players have considered boycotting playing on that stadium. Definitely some players have played with like rainbow shoelaces or a rainbow wristband, but it continues to be controversial. The good thing is we enjoy having people, all types of people on our show. And so we welcome you anytime, Margaret.
I'm not for sort of forcing everyone to believe the same thing that I believe, but I'm going to make fun of everyone. So, I'm going to make fun of Margaret. I'm going to make fun of Novak. We make fun of Kasatkina, one of the most prominent out players. We make fun of her serve because Billy's serve is actually better than Kasatkina's.
I mean, the sad truth is that Paul is not joking. So I was a very serious tennis player growing up, and I loved practicing my ground strokes, right? I loved sort of even the hypnotic element of just hitting shot after shot after shot, but I didn't love practicing my serve.
A lot of people find it boring. I used to love it.
Oh, it's my favorite shot. It's the only way I win. If it's in, I win. If it's out, I'm done.
I would just say to juniors out there or to anyone out there, I mean, the serve is so important. If you've got a great serve, that can win you about half the games you play right there. And it's kind of amazing how people are so resistant to practicing the serve. I think it's because it's less interactive. But I remember when I was 16, I was practicing my serve, and my coach at the time was like, I went by Bill back then, not Billy. And my coach was like, very matter-of-factly, Bill, are you gay? And I was not out at the time. But it was so unassuming and so casual. I was used to people either taunting me about it or talking about it behind my back or being threatening. In a way, I mean, of course I denied it immediately. I was like, what? But it was I don't know if he saw my serve. And
I was going to say, do you have a gay serve? Like, is it? What gave it away?
If there was a relationship between me tossing.
How old were you?
16 when he asked that question. Again, it was very just frank.
Is that ever like a right question to ask a student?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it did make me sort of uncomfortable at the time.
Yeah.
In retrospect, it was kind of nice for it to be asked in such a casual way because it seemed like no matter how I answered, he wouldn't care.
He was going to be
fun. It was kind of cool. And we'd been working together for several years, so we had kind of a friendship. So, but I don't know. Do you think it's appropriate? You've never asked
Jennifer, do you ask your students if they're gay?
No. Because to me, like, that's not going to change anything about the training. And I don't know. I feel like it'd be kind of cool.
You might go with a one-handed backhand if you're gay. I don't know.
I mean, I figure out new ways to motivate them.
Yeah, they felt comfortable and like somebody wanted to come out and like tell me that, but that's none of my business. As a coach, I feel like that's not going to do anything different. And what about on the tour? Are people like openly gay? I mean, I have no idea. On the tour?
Wow.
On the women's side, there's a few. Daria Kasatkina is probably the most prominent one right now. Obviously, there have been people like Billie Jean King in the past and Martina Navratilova, but
Amelie Mauresmo.
Oh,
yeah.
I love her.
Amelie.
Oh, how chic does she look when she's like looking? She's now the tournament director for Roland Garros, right? And she'll just come out there in one of her blazers and chic sunglasses and just overlook Chatrier, kind of nod, walk away. It's great.
Well, that's one of the things we've noticed.
Very Dom energy.
On the ball boys, we've been talking about this. Like some of the former prominent female players are just aging so gorgeously. Like, have you seen Gabriella Sabatini lately?
Oh, she's gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh my God. She is setting the new standard for what someone in their 50s can sort of be. I mean, she is just so chic, so beautiful.
But on the men's side, there are whole forums, pages and pages and pages of people speculating. But no player has really come out while he was an active player. There are players who have come out since. So like Brian Vahaley, but currently there's no one who's openly gay on the men's tour, at least that I'm aware of in the top 300. It'd be a fun moment to see how a player would navigate that and how they'd be received.
I would actually love to see that. Somebody just come out, be themselves, and kind of like make history, because that's not something that we see, not just in tennis, but in any sport, right? Like it's, you got to be a man, right? And in any sport, including tennis. So I think it would be really cool. But I also understand that tennis is an international sport, and culturally it's very, here in the US, some countries in Europe, it's very open, whatever. Like a lot of countries, it's very closeted. And
you make a good point. Like, how would that player necessarily be received in China or in Saudi Arabia, or who knows where they might be playing? Yeah.
We don't have an agenda around that. Like, we have no interest in outing players or being like, I hope there's a gay one. It's more just like on the audience side. So are you familiar with Grindr?
Yeah.
The app. So
yes.
Oh, come on. You can tell Jennifer's used Grindr a ton.
She's like,
see it in her eyes.
So at the Miami Open, I'm sure if your friend went on Grindr, it would be a very active grid right around there, because whether or not there's professional players who are gay, the audience is it's a higher percentage of gays than you would find at a football game or at sort of an average sort of standard American place. Like, it's just, the gays love tennis. And so like, that's more what excites us, is just like, hey, there's this thing there. And that's one of the things like we try to decode that a little bit. Like, is tennis a little bit, is it because it's kind of campy? Is it because both women and men are very successful in it? Is it because we get to like worship divas? Is it drama? I mean, you go to Wimbledon when they had their 100-year anniversary a couple of years ago, it was the campiest celebration ever. And then they trotted out all the former winners, and Venus Williams came out looking like Beyonce. She ate it up. You don't see that in other sports. And so it's more just like, as the audience, there's just such an appeal to, I mean, straights as well, I'm sure, but like, it's hugely appealing to the LGBTQ community.
Elegance and fashion in tennis. And also it's not just a spectator sport. It's a sport that people play.
You made a great point earlier when you were talking about kind of the macho element of sports and kind of the toxic masculinity. While I do feel that exists in tennis for sure, because it's an individual sport, you're maybe not subjected to it as much as you would be if you were on a football team, right? Or on a hockey team. You might feel that even more intensely. Yeah. So maybe some of the community is drawn to the fact that they were drawn to tennis because they didn't have to deal with that tense locker room dynamic of a team sport.
That's a really good point. But okay, so let's get into our Vida Tennis Awards for the Pro Tour 2023 in review. The first one is the most iconic moment of 2023.
This is going to be a little bit from out of left field, because a lot of people probably didn't witness this iconic moment, but I'm going to go with Venus Williams' bold red lip at the Canadian Open earlier this year. So she's 43 now. She hasn't really won more than, I think, a match and a half over the past 4 years. But I just love that she's still playing because she wants to still play. And I'm going to go ahead and say that she's the most iconic, active player in the game right now. And that's why she's getting my iconic moment of 2023, because she is the most iconic.
She didn't do too hot this year, but
Billy and I can sometimes, we don't always agree. I know it seems like we agree on everything, but sometimes we differ. And this was one where I was like, really? Because yes, she is a big icon of the sport. I don't know if she's the biggest icon right now. And yes, that red lip was noticeable, but
what was your most iconic moment?
What really jumped out at me, and this is pretty recent, but did you see that photo from the WTA finals in Cancun where Sabalenka was covered in like 3 white towels, just sheltering herself from the monsoon or hurricane or whatever the hell was going on in Cancun? Because for some reason they decided to have the WTA finals during rainy season in Cancun. That was iconic for me just because the pure misery, the absolute unfettered sadness of the end of the year for these really elite players. But it just kind of summed up what felt like this year was a really there was a lot of disparity between the ATP and WTA this year. It just seems like less and less the WTA is getting the support it deserves. It's getting the sponsorship, the prize money. I mean, these women are winning 250 level tournaments and getting like $30,000, which is great for you and me. Well, for me, I'm not going to speak. Maybe Jennifer, you're like 30. I don't get out of bed for less than 40, but 30,000 is not bad. But the men for a same level tournament, it's like 3 or 4 times that money. And there's a lot of talk about merging the tours. And so that photo just kind of summed up, this is how the women are getting treated. Because when you compare that to the ATP finals that just happened in Turin, one of the most stunning stadiums, live DJ, perfect video, perfect everything. And the court wasn't full of dead spots. It was just the difference between the tours was really iconic.
Day and night. I mean, and it's funny because at this year's US Open, they kept talking about equal prize money. And I'm like, our Grand Slams.
Yeah, right. But not
that's
everywhere.
Confusing, right? That's confusing for people. People don't realize that.
And we do have to remember, though, that the women's tour has really thrived in the past. There have been decades of tremendous success, right? You remember the Williams sisters, Hingis, Kornikova, even Capriati and Sellis all going at it, Davenport.
Kornikova.
I'm just saying she was a big deal and did play a few matches with those players.
She never won a tournament, but okay.
And of course, we have had Serena, but with the men, we've had now over a decade, 15 years of players that are so dominant and so extraordinary that now the men's tour is kind of riding that high a little bit. I do think these things hopefully are cyclical, and I think the women's tour certainly could really pop off in the next couple years, and that's my hope.
Agreed. I think it's going to be interesting to see if tennis goes through the same thing that golf just went through. So I'm all for change and mixing things up, but I don't know.
I'm nodding, pretending I know what golf just went through.
I have no idea what golf just went through. Is golf okay?
We are so obsessed with tennis. We're actually
our whole tour got bought out basically by Saudi.
Oh yeah, there was some weird Saudi Arabian tour or something.
So what they're saying now is that maybe the ATP and the WTA will merge to kind of avoid that. So we'll see. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. My most iconic moments of 2023. I have 2. And I know one you guys are not going to like. I'll start with the nice one. The nice one is Coco Gauff. I mean, I think this was her year to shine, to break through. Yeah. Just absolutely love her, love watching her succeed, winning the Western Southern Open, and then right away winning the US Open. Like, unbelievable. I think everybody found in her.
Well, she finally fixed that forehand.
Well, depends.
Depends
who you ask. But I do like her, and I think we're going to see a lot more of her. And I love that she thanked the haters.
Oh my goodness. That was iconic. And she doubled down. She said it twice. She was like, you thought you were trying to put my fire out with water? Oh no, that was gas. That fueled me. It was great.
We assumed that she was talking about us because in the previous episode, we had talked about how, she just doesn't have it. So if anything, we actually should get a little credit because we fueled Coco.
And then on the men's side, and this is a controversial one. So I'll explain my Novak situation. So one of my most iconic moments this year was Novak hanging up the phone. I know you guys are rolling your eyes.
What?
Okay.
Wow.
So I used to like Novak a lot until he started getting awfully close to Rafa's and Roger's records. And then I was like,
back off, bitch.
Back off. Yeah. Like, I like you, but I don't like you that much. Right. And then he kept winning. And like the whole COVID thing, I think nobody liked Novak during COVID, or at least most people didn't. Right. That whole thing went crazy with COVID. Him and Rafa are like back and forth, right. With Grand Slam titles. And I'm a huge Rafa fan, but now it's like, Djokovic has won it all. He's going to continue to win. Like, we just need to accept it. It's fine. He's not going to be everyone's favorite. He doesn't have that, like, I guess, that attitude that Roger and Rafa have of like just professionals and
class. I don't think he has class. They're the same way that Roger and Rafa do. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not on that same level, but he does have a personality and he's funny. And I like when he kind of like taunts the crowd a little bit because he's like a big kid and he has nothing to prove anymore. And he's out there killing himself to continue to break the record. So him hanging up the phone on Ben Shelton, nothing against Ben Shelton. I like him just fine, but I thought it was iconic because he's just a kid. And he was talking smack. I was talking about how Novak doesn't know what's coming for him. And Novak was like, sorry, boy, boom, hung up the phone. It's a meme. It went viral. I thought it was iconic. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Villains can be iconic.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll run with that. We like that, Jennifer.
Yeah, exactly. So hanging up the phone, I think it was great. I think people were a little too harsh on him. I think it's just because they don't like him.
So the thing with that, I had a very negative reaction to that. And for me, the thing that I don't like about him and the thing that kind of encapsulated was he can have a tendency to punch down a little bit. Like he just beat this kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that great of a match. And it was just like, and now you're going to taunt him a little bit. Like, it's like, dude, you're like 20 years older. You're supposed to be like the GOAT and you're taunting some, 20-year-old kid. It felt a little.
I get it. I think Ben Shelton handled it pretty well. His dad, not so much, but I think he handled it really well. And he was like, yeah, whatever.
And Ben is a big stage player. So I'm very excited for him in the coming years. It wasn't that big of a deal, but just sort of the thing about Novak, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Just at the ATP finals, the way because he lost a set, he stomped on 2 rackets and just destroyed them. It's just like, bro, come on. You're
be
number
better. He definitely should be. He's on a different level. He's now above Roger and Rafa. Like, he should be able to act more professionally. But I kind of like that he shows his human side, and it's just like, he's not a robot. He's not perfect. And I think there's something to like about that. It's a little bit more relatable, I guess.
But do you want him to keep winning? Like, would you like to see him in 2024 win a bunch of slams? Or are you a little tired of him?
Oh, I'm sick of
winning
it.
almost every match.
Win. But at the same time, it's like, he's going to really break all the records. He's going to continue to. So it's like nothing but respect, right? But I am kind of sick of watching him win, to be honest.
Well, and it's wild because we've never had 3 players win so many Grand Slams sort of at the same amount of time. Imagine one of them, Roger or Rafa, was from a different era. It's like Novak would have like 40. He is just going to keep on winning. There's something I do enjoy, though, about Novak arguably being the best player of all time, but not ever really achieving that GOAT status because he's just never going to be beloved. He's just never going to, crowds boo him. Michael Jordan doesn't get booed. Tiger Woods gets booed for different reasons, but it's sort of like there's like Serena Williams doesn't get booed. He just doesn't have that charisma. I don't know if it's charisma or just the like it. He's just not that likable.
He can be a little braggadocious, so I think that's why people don't like him. But I kind of like it. I think it's a little edgy, and he's never like crossed the line to where it's like really bad or disrespectful, except when he hit a lines person. That was obviously bad.
Iconic. That would have. Now, if that was this year, that would have definitely been my moment.
Okay, the next award is Coach of the Year.
Iga Swiatek has a great team around her. She's been with the same sports psychologist for a while, the same trainer for a while, and then Thomas Wiktorowski has been with her since the top of 2022, and she's won 3 slams during that time. And I feel like she's improving every day, every month, right? She's getting better and better. Yeah. And I know he's not a celebrity coach, but they've clearly got something working, and going to be my pick for Coach of the Year.
Awesome.
Billy's answer was so serious. So my coach, so there were 2. I was considering 2 for this. So first was Darren Cahill for all of his work with Jannik Sinner, because Jannik Sinner has really broken through. Just yesterday, he beat Novak again at the Davis Cup. I'm overjoyed. And then he beat him again in doubles. So it's just like a nice twofer. Mm-hmm. And the other one is Brad Gilbert for all the work that he's done with Coco, because I think he really, after Wimbledon, it was like, whoa, Coco, what's going on? And then she came back, and a lot of that is Brad. What Brad is able to do with players over the last 3 decades. He's really coached a lot of people to major success. But if I had to choose between the 2, I would definitely choose Brad, because I was thinking, who would I want to go out to like the Eagle with, or to some sort of gay bar and just have fun with? Because Brad is so fun. All of his little like puns and wordplay, and like he's just like, he's the fear hand, and he's like a fun guy that I think would be super cool to hang out with.
I suspect that Darren Cahill's pretty fun too. I think he's got that Australian wild side. That's my suspicion.
I don't know. I love to laugh, and Brad makes me laugh. That's important in a coach for me. My coach needs to make me laugh.
I love Brad Gilbert, and I think he did an incredible job with Coco Gauff. I mean, proof is in the pudding. Like,
what a turnaround.
So I would agree with that. And I also thought it would be worth mentioning Heidi Elterbach, who is the coach of the Canada team at the Billie Jean King Cup, and actually got to work with her one summer, and she is lovely. And I'm so happy for her.
That was a great moment for Canadian tennis. And of course, it's been a long season, so a lot of people checked out by that point. But Canada winning the Billie Jean King Cup, I personally loved Leylah Fernandez's resurgence this year. It was kind of a quiet resurgence, but she really... Paul loves... I have to drop Leylah's name every time we record.
There's nothing like a subtle resurgence. I mean, come on. Leylah. I mean,
it's not an oxygen. Well, I mean, she won a 250, you know, and I think Heidi did a terrific job coaching them. So I'm with you on that vote too.
She's great. And then the US with Kathy, and she retired. She's also an amazing coach. So that's really fun.
Who's taking over for Kathy? Is it Lindsay?
Oh, I don't know.
I think you mentioned Lindsay Davenport at some point, Paul, but I don't know if you were right.
Oh, really? Oh, that'd be great.
Lindsay is another icon for me. She's big babe tennis to the T, and love.
All right. Best and worst fashion moments of the year.
Mine is a hybrid, both the best and the worst. As you know, Adidas made some interesting statements at the US Open, and Caroline's unitard. Do you remember Caroline Wozniacki in that unitard?
Yeah.
She was making her big comeback. She played Coco Gauff close in the fourth round. It was a very form-fitting unitard. Some people say they spotted a camel toe.
Yeah, can we say camel toe on this show?
It was but Caroline, she seemed to love wearing it. She seemed to feel really excited in it. She had a great tournament. So it's best and worst at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
I love seeing her back, and she proved to us she is absolutely not pregnant, because there was nothing left to the imagination in that. But oof.
That was my worst for 2023 was the US Open bodysuits. And actually, Azarenka also wore one, and Taylor Townsend wore one at the US Open, and those did not look good. And also the tank tops that the guys wore, not a fan.
Agree to disagree.
Did not like it. I mean, they're
Tiafoe's arms at the US Open.
They are reminiscent of Rafa, like back in the day, but no, I don't think it's a good look. I don't like it.
I loved the sleeveless brigade at the US Open with Ben Shelton and Alcaraz and Tiafoe wearing like bright pink sleeveless shirts. It was awesome.
We wrote a haiku to Ben Shelton's bicep for one of our episodes. So yeah, we're going to agree to disagree on that one, Jen. I don't know. I thought I knew you, but geez.
Yeah, I didn't really like it. And then my best was Coco's like chartreuse.
Yes.
And I really did like that outfit with the red, which is a weird combination, but I thought it really well.
I think overall New Balance has been serving her well for sure.
Yeah.
New Balance, what they did with Tommy Paul was great this year. A lot of great looks. But I have to just mention my worst look of the year, because I'm still not over it, which was Jess Pegula, also at the US Open, also with Adidas.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like a Little House on the Prairie, like homesteader apron. Like, I don't know if you remember, but it was like 3 different checkered patterns over each other on the skirt. And it was so unflattering. I could not watch her play because it was such a bad look. And I can't believe they forced poor Jessica Pegula to go out like that. Awful.
I honestly, I don't understand how these brands allow these players to go out looking the way they do sometimes, because it's like you're on international TV on one of the biggest stages in the world. Why are you going to go and look like that? Like, that is unnecessary. And like, honestly, wear something that is flattering to the athlete too, and that makes them look great and represent your brand in a great way. I don't get it.
100%. Yeah, I mean, these women are some of the greatest athletes in the world, obviously, and no body shaming, but like these women are gorgeous. Their bodies are gorgeous. They should look great all the time. And it's crazy that they're dressed in things that aren't flattering. It's crazy.
And Ostapenko's up there too. I mean,
I love everything that she wears because it's unhinged. Like she's just like, whoa, she's making statements.
Yeah.
I am just going to say I still love Caroline Wozniacki's unitard. And so you haven't changed my mind, either of you.
I like that you call it a unitard.
He's actually wearing it underneath his shirt right now.
Yeah.
That's not a bodysuit? I guess not a bodysuit because it's not full.
See, to me, it was more like a wrestler singlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It works for me.
I did like the Adidas black jacket she put on top for like the
cape.
Yeah.
Little Red Riding Hood cape.
Yeah, I thought that was
great.
nice. All right. What about slams? What was the best Grand Slam in you guys' opinion for this year? Or best tournament?
For me, it was the U.S. Open because we had that sleeveless brigade of men. Coco's breakthrough with her pointed speech. Shelton being dialed in and Novak being dialed in. Sabalenka smashing her racket after losing the final.
Jen, did you see that when Sabalenka smashed her racket after the final?
Yeah, I did.
Like anyone who's listening, like it is worth looking up if you missed it. The way she just goes quietly, calmly into the locker room, completely alone, and it's like caught on like a ceiling cam. She just picks out a racket, calmly walks, and just smashes it, and then throws it in the trash. It was so good.
Yeah, it was funny, but I do think that she knew she was being filmed.
I agree. The camera was too well placed, and the performance was too exquisite for it not to have been someone.
I know. It was very dramatic.
I will say that Madison Keys, I'm a huge Madison Keys fan, and seeing her lose that semifinal, which was a great match to Sabalenka, was heartbreaking. But again, the US Open, in my opinion, came to play. There were so many storylines. It was so loud. That's my vote for best Grand Slam, US Open.
Mine was, so I've been shy about this on our show, but I actually got to go to Wimbledon this year, and it was so freaking awesome. And I went with a good friend of mine over, he was living in Paris, we met in London. And the day that we went, I still don't understand how the ticketing at Wimbledon is very weird. It's like you sign up for a lottery and maybe you get to buy it, maybe you don't. But because of that, the prices are not bad. And we were in like the 23rd row of center court. And it was a couple $100. It was like getting those seats at the US Open, it's like in the thousands. Yeah. And we saw the lineup we saw was just incredible. We saw Murray play, we saw Wawrinka, we saw Novak, we saw Alcaraz. Like everyone played because the weather was so bad, everything was backed up. But the setting.
So what you're saying is that if you were Paul and you went to Wimbledon and sat in the 23rd row, then Wimbledon was
by far the best. But the storylines at Wimbledon. So yes, it wasn't just that, but it didn't hurt. So listeners, if you have a chance to go to Wimbledon, go. It does smell like an English garden. Everything just is like fresh. But it's the one freaking Grand Slam that Djokovic didn't win, which the only thing I have, and I know I need to get over this. I probably need to talk to my therapist about this. I don't want Novak to win the Grand Slam. I'm fine with all the other records. I just don't want him to win the Grand Slam. And so this
calendar year Grand Slam, right?
The calendar year Grand Slam, even though he has held all four before, but
and the Olympic medal, the Olympic gold.
And he has no Olympic medals. So like those are our last two defenses against the dark arts of Novak Djokovic. So I loved that final. It was great. And I also loved, that was like one of the first tournaments that Svitolina came back after being a mother, and her run, she like had such a great run to the semis there.
She beat Swiatek, right?
Yeah. And she was great. And I was heartbroken when she didn't. I was like, oh, she's going to take it all. She didn't. She's got a history of not quite getting over the finish line, but it was such a great storyline. And again, I was there. So it was great.
I totally get it. So I went to the French Open this year, and
I see what this is now.
Yeah. So I went to the French Open. I loved it. I had never been. I'd never been to Wimbledon, and I love the French Open. It's getting tickets is ridiculously difficult, but you can get really close seats for like a normal price.
I have a question for you, Jennifer. So I went there a few years ago before they did the whole expansion, right? With Simone Mathieu court, and they expanded the grounds. It definitely felt cramped when I went there, but I know they've since really expanded it. So were you able to walk freely and kind of really enjoy the atmosphere? Because people were shoulder to shoulder when I was there, because I think the grounds are just so tight.
They are a little tight.
But they made the renovations to fix them, so maybe that improved.
It wasn't always tight. It was just like maybe between the daytime and nighttime session that would get pretty crowded.
Change over. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, and then you can bring food, you can bring drinks. The food and the drinks that you buy at the site are like normal price, not like US Open prices. So it's really like I was like in love. I loved it. And I got
Do people still smoke there?
No.
Because when I went, it was literally everyone was just like smoking. It was just like
I wouldn't have liked that. But I got to see Altmaier and Sinner play, and that was like a 5-hour match. It was a really, really good match. That was probably my favorite just because I got to go to it. But as a fan,
I didn't get to go to any Grand Slams this year. Okay, everybody. So Paul did, Jennifer did, just Indian Wells for Billy.
Sorry, but I agree with Paul that Wimbledon was probably my favorite because Carlos Alcaraz won, and I love Carlos.
I knew it. I knew you believe in the light.
Yes,
that was iconic. That was an iconic win.
I did love to see that, though. I was extremely disappointed to see Ons lose again.
Heartbreaking.
It broke my heart. Yeah, it was awful.
Poor Ons. Yeah.
So I think I messed up earlier when I said it was Vondrousova's strategy against Swiatek. I think it was her strategy against Ons that we deciphered through her tattoos. Just clarifying in case listeners were confused.
Yeah, she had a whole nother set of tattoos for Swiatek.
It was really heartbreaking. All right, guys. And then the last question, what we missed in 2023 and what we look forward to in 2024. And this better be Novak getting a golden slam, because I think Paul is going to have to get therapy after if that has to happen.
More therapy.
I will hang up right now.
Jennifer. He's already in therapy. Don't worry.
This has actually been therapeutic for me. So I think my therapist will be very happy with my progress today.
I would like to see, even though it's so exciting seeing Sinner and Alcaraz and Rune be playing well, we still had Novak win 3 slams in 2023. So it might be wishful thinking, but I'd love to see some more slam winners on the men's side and see a little decline in Novak's form. So that's what I'm looking forward to in 2024 and what I missed in 2023, frankly. And on the women's side, I'm excited to see some rivalries at the top starting to take shape, right? We've got Swiatek versus Sabalenka, Swiatek Goff, throw Naomi Osaka into the mix next year in 2024. I'm looking forward to that. If we have them playing each other consistently on the big stages, I think that could be that women's tennis, not renaissance, but like
the tennis-tance.
Yeah, getting more relevant again and people getting more excited about it again. If they saw some consistent rivalries. So that's my looking forward to.
The thing I missed and the thing I'm most looking forward to, I just have 2 words for you. Rafa. Because when he posted that he is in for Australia, the excitement, like I am just like you, huge Nadal fan, and I cannot wait for him to come back. I'm not getting my hopes super high up, although you can never count him out. No. But I'm gonna savor every moment we have with him. I do think he's gonna retire after the Paris Olympics. I think that's gonna be such a poetic way to end his career. But I'm so excited to see what he can do and just
Jennifer,
soak it in.
Did you know my cat is named Rafa?
No.
Yeah, I have a cat named Rafa. I'm also a huge Nadal fan. I'm excited. Yeah. I'm keeping my expectations managed for now. For sure.
So the reason I went to the French Open this year was because I thought this would be his last, and he got injured. And then it was every week, waiting for a new update on Instagram. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? And then he finally came out and said, he's not playing the French Open. And I was heartbroken, but I was like, hey, it's okay. Because worst case scenario, I'm in Paris watching tennis.
It was still your favorite tournament of the year.
Exactly. Even without him, I did get a funny picture by his statue. I agree with you guys about seeing other players other than Novak. at the top. I miss Rafa, I miss Serena, Roger, all of it. I miss actual role models on the court too. I think these new guys can be such little brats, and it's not fun to watch, at least not fun for me. And then I also miss friends asking me to play tennis and not pickleball.
Oh,
Jennifer, come out to LA. We will play tennis with you, and we can be rude to the pickleballers on the court next to us.
I'm like, but what about tennis? And now I even get asked to play padel, which is really fun too. But I'm like, I want to play tennis.
Pickleball came up over Thanksgiving, and it's sort of like,
Oh boy.
it was one of those hot button issues. And I was just like, I am vehemently against pickleball. And someone else is like, well, I love it. And it just became this whole thing. And honestly, I am so anti pickleball, mostly because of the name. It's just so stupid. Like, pickleball. Come on. Like, get a better name and then maybe we'll talk. But it's just the way in LA they've taken over some of the courts. And it's like, no, that's a tennis court.
That's my only issue with it is, it taking over the courts. I play it every now and then, but yeah, I mean, I think it's great. It's great for racket sports in general, but I'm like, no, I want to play tennis. If I'm going to like put my shoulder through a workout, it's going to be for tennis. It's not going to be for pickleball.
100%.
What would you say your best shot is, Jennifer?
My best shot? Forehand for sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Love it. You could teach Coco Gauff a thing or two.
Yeah, I think I could. I'll help her.
Yeah. Coco, call Jennifer.
Yes. Or DM me on Instagram.
Speaking of which, just quick plug. Everyone can find us on Instagram at TBB Pod Official. Is that right, Paul?
That is it. The official account. Don't follow the unofficial accounts. It's TBB Pod Official. And we're the Ball Boys. You can find us on Spotify. This is a labor of love. This is something that was just me and Billy, and we do everything, the writing, the editing, which is so fun.
We don't do the editing. Paul does the editing, I have to say. And
it was the royal
Paul.
way.
Thank you, Paul.
Nice. Well, thank you so much to you guys for talking with me today. Everybody go check them out. The Ball Boys podcast. Thank you guys so much. That was so fun. This
was so fun. I loved this conversation. I want to do it again. I mean, if you need a couple of opinionated homosexuals for anything else, like just call us anytime and we will show up.
Sounds good. You guys are welcome anytime.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your support and continuing to listen to our podcast every week. I have some amazing episodes already recorded for you guys for January. I really do wish you all the best holidays and a spectacular new year. May we all be happy, healthy, do the things we love like tennis, and find purpose in even the little things that we do. Cheers!